I never thought in my life that I'd do so much research on Israel, but considering the last few years of this ongoing genocide, the complete ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, and just the atrocities that we're seeing on screen because the IDF are purposely exposing and sharing this all over social media, baiting people to see how outrageous, gruesome, just absolutely deplorable these people are. And as I said, if you didn't want people to comment, if you didn't want people to be up in arms and emotional and just absolutely angered at the situation that's happening in the Middle East, maybe not promote it on social media, maybe not promote and parade around it like it's some sort of TikTok trend to go and slaughter an innocent family. That's kind of, a criminality 101. Don't promote your crimes all over social media if you don't want to get caught and exposed. I never thought I'd do so much research on Israel, but ever since then, it's very eye-opening to know where this country came from, why exactly it exists, why exactly so many people are so prone to protecting this so-called promised land. As far as I knew back in the day, it was, just kind of like religious icon. It's the said promised land of the Judeo-Christian ethic, but now we're understanding that this modern day Israel is none of that. That modern day Israel has more dark skeletons in their closet than people realize. And this came about, and I want to show people this. This guy called Unka, O-U-N-K, K-A. This guy here says Israel's founding fathers weren't statesmen. They were terrorists. The Irgun, Lehi, and Stern gang did not fight for freedom. They massacred villages and bombed hotels. The tactics never changed, just the uniforms. So this guy here is going to do a breakdown on the formation of the colonization of Israel. And just to remind people, this has been an ongoing battle way before October 7th. Everyone is so concerned about, what happened on October 7th. And yes, it is a, emotional day. It's a very, very, very pulling at the heartstrings on what exactly happened on the day. But we're not allowed to know what happened on October 7th, just like we're not allowed to know what happened on 9/11 or JFK and elsewhere. Go figure. But this has been going on since at least the Nakba, at least 1948. And probably even before then, since the formation of Zionism, which is a fascist colonization, Zionism fascism coalition that derives from Nazism, derives from fascism. It derives from the Rothschilds. It derives from nefarious ghouls and gangsters at the top elite that purposely created this modern day Israel, not for religious purposes, not for the sanctity of Jews, but for actually more nefarious purposes. And here's an explanation on one of those instances. Take a listen.
The state of Israel was founded by terrorists. No, this is not hyperbole. No, this is not a metaphor. The state of Israel was founded by terrorist groups. Before Israel's founding in 1948, there were three main Zionist paramilitary groups. These were known as the Haganah, the Lehi, and the Irgun. It was these three paramilitary organizations that merged together and later became what we now know as the IDF, or Israeli Defense Forces. It was these three paramilitary groups who were designated as terrorist organizations by both the UK and the United Nations that would become responsible for implementing Plan Dalet, the blueprint for the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. In July of 1938, the Irgun bombed two vegetable markets in Haifa and Jerusalem, respectively, killing 80 people in total. In July of 1946, the Irgun bombed the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, killing 91 people. Also in 1947, the Lehi tried sending letter bombs to the White House to try and assassinate President Truman for not supporting their efforts to build a Jewish state in Palestine. In January of 1948, the Haganah bombed the Semiramis Hotel in Jerusalem, killing 25 people. In April of 1948, both the Irgun and Lehi attacked the village of Dir Yassin and massacred over 110 Palestinians. And in September of 1948, the Lehi assassinated a man who rescued 31,000 people from a Nazi concentration camp in World War II, including over 500 Jews. Folk Bernadotte, a United Nations mediator who the Lehi accused of having a pro-Arab stance during the ceasefire negotiations at the end of 1948. The leader of the Haganah, David Ben-Gurion, became Israel's first prime minister. The leader of the Irgun, Menachem Begin, became Israel's sixth prime minister from 1977 until 1983. And the leader of the Lehi, Yitzhak Shamir, would become Israel's seventh prime minister from 1983 until 1984, and from 1988 until 1992.
Oh, that's very insightful there. I mean, that just gives a little bit of a highlight, of a glimpse of just the criminal activity involved in this formation of the settlement here. Going back to, obviously, the King David bombings, going back to, the Nakba going into Palestine, wiping off a huge amount of the population, and having these criminal enterprises formulate, to quote the words of RFK Jr., it's like an aircraft carrier. That's pretty much what Israel is. It's not a formation for the Jewish state or for the Jewish population. That was all a front. That was all a front to hide and masquerade the criminality of this settlement, which is really a settlement for the Zionist faction, for the correlation of Nazism and fascism and the worst coordinated together to have this safe home, to have this outpost in the Middle East so they could control and dominate Middle Eastern countries. That's why, Israel and the United States had similar enemies. That's why they both coordinated to attack Iran and Afghanistan and Syria and Lebanon and Syria and Iraq and so on. All these different territories that has nothing to do with the United States, nothing to do with our safety. They didn't go and attack Jewish people. Iraq has never stormed into Israel, but they're deemed sworn enemies. Why? Because the people that are behind the formation of Israel, the people behind these nefarious gains, they want to overthrow these countries so they can hijack their resources. These are criminal enterprises. And that's just a glimpse of it. That's not even including the recent 1996 bombing of the Israeli embassy done by Israel in the United Kingdom. They blamed it on Palestinians. They blamed it on Arabs. They tried to stoke the flames for, global terrorism, but it turned out it was Israelis that bombed their own embassy to put it and penalize the Arab nations, including Palestine. So this has been well documented, that people can look into, that people can read up on this, that it's not hyperbole, it's not anti-Semitism. In fact, what you're doing here is more anti-Semitic than what you're claiming other people are doing of anti-Semitism. It's actually more anti-Semitic to target Palestinians, considering the fact that Palestinians are Semites. Going back to the Bible and the scripture that proves that Arabs are descendants of Abraham. Jewish and Arab communities and cultures derive from descendants of Abraham. It goes back that far, and what they're doing here is actually more anti-Semitic than what they're claiming a college student protesting on campus grounds is doing. It's absolutely nuts, but it's all there in disguise to cover up the heinous actions of these enterprises, and these enterprises that then became rulers of Israel. So here is this other guy, Keith Woods. He does this little thread here about, it says, Jewish terrorism and the foundation of Israel. I've recently observed many Zionists saying recognizing a Palestinian state is rewarding terrorism. And yeah, I remember seeing that. I remember when, Mark Carney announced that he recognized recognized Palestine as a state, and people thought it was rewarding terrorism. And I thought it was hysterical. I thought it was absolutely hysterical, considering the fact that the former leader of Al-Qaeda is now the president of Syria, and we're applauding him. We just applied a legit Nazi war criminal in parliament twice, as we're rewarding terrorists around the world. But, of course, Recognizing Palestine as a state and recognizing human beings live there, that's rewarding terrorism. It's so absurd. It's so absurd. The utter ironic hypocrisy that comes out of these people, but they don't see it. They don't see it. They lived in a little bubble for so long. Ironic considering Israel is founded on and created by terrorists. Let's take a look at early Zionist terrorism. So after World War II, that goes on to say, after World War II, a paramilitary group of 50 Jews nicknamed the Avengers had a failed plot to kill 6 million German civilians by poisoning the German water supplies. The leader of the plot, Abba Kovner, was rewarded the Israel Prize in 1970, the country's highest cultural honor. Once Jews began to settle Palestine in the early 20th century, terrorism soon followed. Haganah was formed in 1920. Out of this came two more radical Zionist paramilitaries, Irgun, which was established in 1931, and Lehi, or Stern Gang, in 1940. In 1940, Haganah bombed the SS Patria, a ship being used by the British to deport 18,000 Jews who had tried to enter Palestine illegally. Haganah intended to cripple the ship, but it ended up sinking it and killing 267 people, including 50 crew members and the British servicemen. So, think about that. These Zionist cartels, these Zionist gangs, attacked a ship with 1,800 Jewish civilians. And these are the people that are founding the said Holy Land of the Jewish people. Do you see the hypocrisy? Do you see that the anti-Semites are the ones that create Israel? That this is not a safe space for Jewish people. It's not a safe space for Christians. And it completely deteriorates against the religious principles and practices of both these religions. That this is all a facade, it's all a front for these criminal gangs to occupy and control this Middle Eastern territory. In 1944, going back to this, in 1944, Zionist paramilitaries began an insurgency against British rule in the Mandate of Palestine, targeting both British and Arab forces. Once the main organizers of Irgun leader, Menachem Begin, future founder of Likud and Prime Minister of Israel. Go figure. In 1946, Begin's Irgun carried out the King David Hotel bombing. The bombing resulted in the deaths of 91 people and injured 46 others. Among the victims were hotel staff and other innocent bystanders. In 2006, Israel unveiled a plaque to celebrate those responsible. They celebrated the bombing of the King David Hotel, where Jewish people were staying at this hotel. So they're congratulating that they slaughtered Jewish people in the Holy Land of the Jewish people. Just want to make that perfectly clear that anyone supporting Israel, you're not supporting Jewish people by doing this. Supporting Jewish people would actually be supporting the Jewish faith, which in the Jewish faith would not allow for something like this. This is a Zionist death cult. This is a Zionist death cult that will contribute to the death and demonization of anyone that goes against them, including Jewish people. These are people that could not give a damn about anyone else. That's where you get the mentality. That's when you get the craziness. That's when you get people screaming at your face, telling you to shut up, that you're awful, you're Islamist, you're jihadist, you're this, you're that, you're worse than Hitler. And then they also cry about it when, they get accused, when they actually get accountable on this. The apparently more moderate Haganah was responsible for the Christian-owned Seramis Hotel bombing in January 5th, 1948. The explosion killed at least 25 Palestinians that were celebrating Orthodox Christmas, as well as senior Spanish diplomats. In 1947, bought the so-called Surgeons Affair. Irgun kidnapped 2 British Army Intelligence Corps, NCOs, and in response to the death sentences passed on 3 Ingrid fighters. They hanged them and booby-trapped their bodies. Fury at this led to an anti-Jewish riots in Britain. So they're causing anti-Semitism. The Zionists are. Zionists are the perpetrators that cause anti-Semitism. They want this to occur, again, to make a facade, to make themselves the victim. That they're disguising themselves as Jewish to cover up their crimes against Jewish people. Do you see how much of a scam this is? Do you see how much, from the get-go, this has been a deliberate scam that's been going on and passing for generations, that you've been lied to, that you've been propagandized, you've been brainwashed, you've been MK Ultra'd into this death cult. And you're causing anti-Semitism to claim you're fighting against anti-Semitism while killing Palestinians who are Semites. Throughout the insurgency and prior to it, Zionist terrorist groups engaged in the indiscriminate killings against Palestinians. In one instance in 1938, 43 people were killed when Jewish terrorists placed a bomb in a crowded market in Haifa. In April 1948, Irgun and Lehi militants jointly committed their Deir Hassan massacre of at least 107 Palestinian villagers, including women and children. Deir Hassan was a Palestinian village of around 600 people near Jerusalem. Some of the first-hand accounts of the Deir Hassan massacre included a report of a young man tied to a tree and set on fire. Girls lined up against a wall and shot with a submachine gun, and a baby thrown into an oven while its father watched. So, talk about rewarding terrorists. Talk about rewarding terrorists. Talk about where Hamas got the crazy, everybody likes to say that Hamas, killed all these babies and burnt them in ovens. I wonder where they got that mentality from. I wonder where they got trained on that. Where did they get this mentality and the training and the money and the resources? Oh, well, if we looked at the records, it goes to show that Hamas actually originated from people like this. That they purposely built this terrorist group, much like how America initialized the Mujahideen, which later became Al-Qaeda and ISIS, to cause terror around the world, to scare people, fearmonger, bait them, and control, devastate, deploy, just utmost destruction of Middle Eastern countries. Just like they did here. Many perpetrators of the Deir Hassan massacre were later absorbed into the IDF. Hashem Begin later stated in his book, without that was once done at Deir Hassan, there would not been a state of Israel. So if they did not commit this giant terrorist attack, they're saying there wouldn't be an excuse to form this nation of Israel. Without killing people. Without doing a false terrorist attack done by them. And you wonder why people are upset. You wonder why people don't recognize the state of Israel. You wonder why that. Not because they're anti-Jewish or they're, anti-Semitic, but because they know the history of this. They can easily look this up and realize that this is a formation of land they stole from Palestinians caused by known terrorists that have done destruction around the world, including in Europe, including in North America, and elsewhere. These are criminal mobsters, criminal gangsters that are using Israel as their own little outpost to cause more and more havoc around the Middle East. And elsewhere around the world because of the Samson option, just to remind people. Jewish groups like Haganah and Irgun continued regular offenses into Arab settlements after the 1948 Arab-Israel War, with terrorism, assaults, and indiscriminate killings used to enforce a state of terror. Fearing more events like Deir Hassan, hundreds of thousands fled. So they continued this terrorist op continuously, forcing the ethnic cleansing of the territory so they could seize control of it. Just like right now, October 7th was the event planned out to cause this mass reaction so that they can orchestrate a massive cleansing of the Palestinian region so they could go out and slaughter and kill and cause a genocide to thousands upon thousands and thousands of civilians within Palestine. They did this intentionally. In total, in 1948, 700,000 Palestinians, half the Arab population of Palestine, either fled their homes or were expelled by Zionist paramilitary organizations with the support of the Israeli military. Then a series of laws were passed to prevent them from returning. Recently, it has been uncovered that Israeli forces engaged in a secret operation named Cast Thy Bread, echoing the Avengers. This plan, approved by Israel's founder Ben-Gurion, had Jewish forces poison wells of Arab areas to force their populations to flee or die. So the same occupation or the same operation that they were trying to go after the Germans, they're trying to go after the Arabs. Is that just insane? The same operation they were trying to, there's paramilitary troops trying to poison the German soldiers, primarily the people involved in sending them to concentration camps. Now they're doing it to the Arab population. It's kind of interesting that they would just take the same operation and just put it onto a different group of people. And again, I find it so interesting that Germany, that, caused a lot of the Holocaust, that had these concentration camps, that oppressed Jewish people, that went in and did, so many massacres in Poland and whatnot. They were not held to the same contempt that they're trying to accuse Palestine of being held to a contempt. Like, they're not being brutalized. They're not being attacked. And again, I'm not saying that I'm encouraging violence against Germany, but it is just interesting that Germany never had to give up their land. Germany never had to surrender a portion of their population to the Jews and to the Jewish population. Like, it just seems crazy, doesn't it? It seems a bit crazy. So what is Operation Cast Thy Bread? I went to the site on Medium here to figure this out. It says Israel's strategy on scorched earth. This is from Religion and Politics at the Dinner Table that wrote this. And it says, here's a story for you won't find in your high school history book. In 1948, before Israel even officially became a state, its founders were already committing atrocities. Possibly the original modern use of biological warfare in the region. They called Operation Cast Thy Bread, a reference to a Bible verse about giving and being generous. This, on the other hand, was a mission to poison Palestinian water supplies with typhoid bacteria to scare people out of their homes, ethnically cleanse with a biblical name. The most moral army in the world. That's what they keep saying themselves. They're the most moral army in the world by going and slaughtering more innocent people. Not just in Palestine, but they're going to Lebanon. They already attacked Syria. They're fighting, they're attacking Yemen. And they're ramping up another war, escalated war, with Iran. The most moral army on earth wants to attack all these nations that had nothing to do with anything. This wasn't some fringe operation by rogue soldiers. It was approved by David Ben-Gurion himself and overseen by military brass like Yigal Yadin, who later became chief of staff of the IDF. Their goal was to make sure Palestinians didn't just flee, but stayed gone. How better to do that than to make their water undrinkable and watch a typhoid breakout roll out through the town? Take the city of Acre, for example, in May 1948, as fighting raged, reports began surfacing of typhoid spreading throughout the city. The water had been deliberately contaminated, and many people got sick. The fear alone was enough to clear out a population. This is documented, declassified history. That's what Cast the Bread is about. They deliberately poisoned the people of Palestine, hoping that they would either flee or die. And this is before even the idea of Israel becoming a state. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind for all the people out there that are talking about, rewarding terrorists with their own state, and Palestine, they stole the land first, and oh my God, how crazy it is, and how it's a sacristy for the Jewish population. It's a secular, democratic nation. Just remember all these things. Remember the fact that it's founded by terrorist organizations. It's founded by these criminal gangsters from elsewhere. The formation of Zionism derives from formations of Nazism and fascism. And this is not a state for religious practices. It's a state for control. It's a state for the Zionist cabal of criminal elites to master their heinous against Middle Eastern territories. As, paraphrase RFK Jr. once again, like an aircraft carrier. Israel's like an aircraft carrier. That's what it is. It's an aircraft carrier for the Zionist paramilitary criminal cartels. That's what it's all about. It's not about for the Jewish people, because right now in Israel, they're beating up Jewish civilians. They're beating up rabbis that want peace. They're beating up against their own civilians. They did the Hannibal Directive during October 7th that no one's allowed to talk about. They're not allowed to question why those cars explode. You're not allowed to question why they had helicopters swarming the area, targeting Israelis that were being kidnapped by Hamas. You're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to ask where Hamas originated from. You're not allowed to ask anything, because anything that contradicts the official narrative is deemed anti-Semitic, even though it's anti-Semitic what they're doing right now, killing Palestinians, because by definition, by biblical proportion, they are Semites. They are Semites. And anyone that is a practicing Jewish person or a practicing Christian or believes any philosophy within the religious context should know that they're derived of descendants of Abraham, that Israel is a formation by from Abraham, a descendant from him. Same with the Arab population. And what they're doing to Palestinians is anti-Semitic, because those are Semites under the provisions of God. So it just goes to show you how nefarious, how evil, how daunting this is. And it really is like spiritual warfare, what's happening in Israel and what's happening all around the world. That people are taking what the Bible preaches and what Scripture preaches and what Jesus Christ and all the teachings are informing people. They're taking it for granted, out of context, to do the most nefarious things that would completely, be ostracized in the biblical world. Like the fact that right now people are using the Bible as defense to say that, hey, poor people should starve in America. All these SNAP recipients should just shut the hell up and starve. As you know, you're bailing out Argentina. As right now, you're bailing out more of Ukraine and giving more to the billionaire class. No. That's what Jesus wants, right? He wants the poor people to starve and more money to be transferred to the wealthy. Or is it the other way around? You're taking it out of context because it goes in the direction of your political beliefs, and your political beliefs have become the new religion. And that's why, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you're stuck in a cult. Because all these blue no matter who, or everything Trump does is correct, as you in a cult. And just like people had made fun of cults before, when it comes to Scientology and that, how is politics any different? So it's absolutely devastating. It's absolutely devastating, and it's continuing. Obviously, Israel, violated its peace agreement. They are never going to hold peace because they are a violent bloodthirsty criminal cartel, demonic organized gang. And they're going to continue on the wiping out of the Palestinian region until they get full control, until they get control for the Greater Israeli Project. And I wish I could say that was it. I wish I could say it's only just them taking Palestine, but obviously with the Samson option, obviously with everything that's going on, who knows what can happen next. So, knock on wood, if anything happens to me, just note, I'm not in a bad place. I feel good. I have no intent of self-deletion, but anything happens to me, well, you can figure out for yourself.